This edition of the Ridley Report is brought to you by the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance at nhliberty.org.
I'm standing here with State Rep Jenn Coffey from
Andover. From Andover, yes.
You've got a bill here that I think could have fallen off some people's radar because some of the wording is a little bit complicated, but basically you were trying to get rid of what exactly?
It's in relation to SB 500 that was passed last year, and what the bill essentially does is it removes violent offenders from the early release. We've found that there are some areas that they don't have services set up, so people are just kind of getting out early, and these people are people who didn't qualify for parole sooner because they refused to comply with perhaps maybe they were a sex offender and they weren't willing to go and take classes regarding that or seek counseling or assistance for that. It also gives the parole board back discretion, which is important. Perfect example is you have somebody who's in jail for child molestation and they're out on parole, and part of their parole says they can't hang around children's playgrounds, and they're found hanging out around children's playgrounds. That's a violation of their parole. The old system, if they had 2 years left on their sentence, they'd go back to prison for those 2 years, or they could. The parole board could send them back. Under the new rules, they can go to do 90 days in jail and then they're released.
So it's like it's locked in.
Yeah, they're locked into that 90 days, and that's it. They're released. Because there's no additional criminal charge, it's not a crime to hang around a playground, but I think it's wise to tell a child molester, you can't hang around playgrounds.
Is there any provision in the wording of your bill, though, to make sure that they're releasing more nonviolent offenders? Because that's a big problem that they're holding them.
I'm not affecting nonviolence. I'm specifically targeting those that are violent offenders that have hurt other people and those that are violating their parole conditions, that the parole board is left with no discretion to put them back into prison to complete their sentences if they're violating their parole.
Do you have any sense, though, that this could increase taxpayer expenditure, and if so, how much?
Actually, the increase has already occurred. When you think about what's happening, you've got people who are parole violators who are being put in our county jails, downshifting that cost to the local taxpayer versus going back to prison where they were, where it's at the state level. So already that cost has already been shifted down to our local jails instead of being put back in prison. So that's already occurring. If anything, this reverses that and puts them back where they're supposed to be.
Do you have any sense of who you're getting support and opposition from at this point?
I think I'm getting support. I think law enforcement supports what we're doing. I think that the common mom and dad support what we're doing because we're trying to undo damage that was unintentionally done. I don't think that it was the intention of that past legislation to do this. I think it was an unintended consequences that they didn't foresee, or maybe they did. The majority blurb last year on the House specifically stated that their changes to law were to affect the non-violent offenders. Truth of the matter is it affects the violence. And when that realization came out, it was quite shocking that we were misled in the way that blurb was drafted to truly tell what the ramifications of the bill was. So this is an important change that we need to make. I'm not against trying to better our system. I'm not against working on ways of getting nonviolence out and get them to be productive members of society. That's what we all want.
But that's just something for a separate bill.
That's something to address for a separate bill, absolutely. What we're trying to do here, what I'm trying to accomplish here is to protect people from those that are out to do harm, and they know their way around the legal system, they know what they can't do, and they can do. Before, they would have the risk factor of violating their parole and going back to prison. Now they don't have that hanging over their head. Now they have a mere 90 days in jail and they're out and about doing it again unless they've been found to commit a new crime. Well, oftentimes parole violations aren't new crimes. In fact, they're not crimes at all. They're just simply standards put into place to try and keep this person away from those situations, such as the child molester, away from our playgrounds.
Okay. Thanks, Jen. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
This edition of the Ridley Report was brought to you by the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance at nhliberty.org. If you were to go to the State House and do this, then you would step on the toes of a Liberty Alliance member, because they're all over the place at the State House. They are there fighting for your freedom, and they need your help. Visit the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance at nhliberty.org and join them. Or maybe I should say, join us, because I am a member. nhliberty.org.